now they, I guess, hopefully the YouTube stream is restarted a new thing. That way I don't get, don't fucking copy strike me. Yeah, okay, we should be good. Yay, yay. Dude, how insane. Literally 25 fucking seconds before it ended, too. Unbelievable. Let me just make sure. I think it'll work, but yeah. Incredible, incredible. Should be. I think we're good. Okay, it's just unironically, there's only 3K likes. Okay, it doesn't look like people are that upset about this. Yeah, it's not even that. It doesn't even look like it's that expensive. Okay, incredible. Bro, if you have a wife as hot as Zorhan's, okay, you better be taking her shit like this. I guess I can read easy money. Like, come on, dog. Obviously, you gotta. All right, I'm familiar. I know. I recognize who this person is. I think because I think you've sent me this stuff before. ISIS burning our political capital. Well, we found our Elizabeth Warren staffers. Yesterday, the Chicago College Republican held a hot takes night. The premise was to run a social mixer, have a fun event, and engage in conservative coded activity of annoying people without their opinions. I arrived a little over halfway through the hour. Shout out to Students for Abundance for moving future meetings to avoid a conflict. And the topic was whether or not ICE agents should be allowed to wear a mask on duty. Baddie ladies is their baddie treatment. Exactly. Wine and dine only. That's what I'm saying. No cheaper, right? Exactly. If you got a fucking, it didn't even look like that expensive or anything, but if you got a wife like that, okay, she fucking deserves to be taken to shit places like that. Okay. Yeah, I know easy money. Yeah, I recognize it. To discuss that topic for 15 of the 25 minutes I was there, I later discovered that they were discussing masked ICE agents for 50 to 60 minutes in the event bay. So this is astonishing to me. I have my own thoughts on ICE agents, and I'll get to them in a minute. But I just want to pause first and note how absurd this level of focus is. Before the midterms, Republicans still have an enormous amount of policy entrepreneurialism they could or should be trying. DOT grant making is still fundamentally the same as it was, and a shutdown is going to start decimating the ranks of air traffic controllers in the next couple of months. I haven't heard anything in the DOE or Congress about supporting charter schools. Cough, deducting tuition from income tax, cough. Doesn't RK Jr. have my price stone or whatever, and IVF to ban? Or failing that, Tylenol. We're still going to lose the Taiwan Strait conflict of 2027 to 2028. Heck, even within immigration, did they ever do anything about the pro-terror students who they were so concerned about? And when are they going to fix that fiasco about the $100,000 fee exempted applications from other visa categories? But that included tourist visas, so that so this is just going to, so this is going to just further the extent that people cheating the system. I think this is, I think I recognize what, yeah. I don't know. I don't recognize this person though, but we're honest. All right, is it written by a Republican strategist? Is written by, I don't think they're a strategist. I think they are just like a right-leaning person. Point is, there's a lot to do in the Republican administration. I don't agree with all of it. I'm not an IVF hardliner, but there are obviously Republicans who are. There's lots of coalition dividing, but important discourse to do, even with immigration. Republicans did not really resolve why or what extent they were against it, so there's lots of fractional infighting we can do about optimal policy. Notice written by a college student. Yeah, I think they're just, I don't think they're important in any like real world sense. Instead, we're talking about what ICE agent looks like. Literally, what are we doing here? Twitter user Jack Wickham did some math and found that ICE is about as hazardous to Hispanic Americans as getting killed in a car crash or getting injured by toilet bays. It's just not important. I mean, it may have a spiritual meaning about due process, but it's not a thing which is strictly relevant to anyone. I don't like where we're at. Well, the due process thing is important because you don't want the president's stress testing our norms in rule law. Okay, fine, people do care. On side conservative. One of the big conservative contentions in favor of masks that ICE agents need them for their own safety. The contention is that the only reason activists want ICE agents to their faces so they can identify ICE agents with the intent of harassing them and their families outside of line of duty. This is entirely believable. We have a far left culture in the US which mostly promulgates the idea that doing violence against fascists is good, and we have relatively serious intellectuals in the US saying that ICE is a fascist agency based, and you can see the problem. These are relatively serious individuals. Oh, and Center for New Liberalism. I don't know, guys. Center for New Liberalism W to me. It seems like that to me. Let's go. To be clear, this is absurd. Nobody's a reliable narrator what politics are dangerous or even what politics are fascist, and fascism has no widely agreed upon definition outside of literally Mussolini Hitler, but the government has to be able to function even when you think politics are dangerous. So no violence against government employees, but violence is pretty small umbrella of activities. One of the more recent tactics is try to make life unlivably non-violently. Confront ICE agents, friends, churches, social clubs, etc. about how they tolerate dangerous, less fascist people in their communities and generally make their lives unlivable. I.e. triple budget, same level of deportations to make everyone hate themselves. But it's also absurd. People have to be able to work in the government without extraordinary social consequences, especially given the way government wages already are. Otherwise, we can't have a government at all. I don't know. They pay ICE employees a lot now. We've never really had to deal with this kind of harassment before. Nobody was really going after DOT employees or anything. And I think it began in 2020 with the ACAB movement. We agreed in 2024 at the ballot box that ACAB was just bad policy, but the movement tactics stuck around, and I'm super uncomfortable with it. If only leftists gave me more space to move left because on-side liberal. The liberals aren't wrong. ICE is a pretty scary agency, and we should be wary about their radically expanded role in the Trump administration. Police agencies are relatively touchy space in any society of rule of law because if the police break the law, who are you going to call? The police, because it's so difficult to get redress if the police break the law. Liberal societies design mechanisms to ensure it doesn't happen. We have the Miranda rights, Fifth Amendment, public defenders, and rules around interrogations to protect the rights of those who interact with the legal system. Some of those were built into the Constitution, but others had to be fought for in the courts. They aren't as obvious requirement for a new law enforcement agency. ICE has none of those systems. DHS is a new agency, and it was founded with an anti-terror mission. Terrorism itself is a pretty legally dubious concept, largely designated to get around due process norms. Blog post at this in some indefinite point in the future, lol. So it makes sense that a new law enforcement agency in an department with a dubious relationship to the law is going to have problems with officer accountability. I see what liberally getting at, even from a conservative perspective. If we want better enforcement of illegal immigration in the future, the agency we assign it has to be palatable to a supermajority of American people. This is truth nuke, as the police are. Radical monetarism. Oh no. But as I mentioned at the start of the section, I don't think harassing police officers in personal capacity constitutes accountability. That's a bad way to do things. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously, I understand the point that like having identifiable features could enable that, but it's also probably what enables you to, like, even just for example, like file suit against them, right? It's not even just masks, but like ICE is not, like they're not identifying their names or badge numbers or shit like that too. Or I don't know if they have formal badge numbers, but you know, a way you could actually hold them accountable. That's a bad way to do things and fundamentally forces the kind of masking we're seeing now, which honestly is fine if you don't want to. If you want to go after police officer in professional capacity, names are a terrible way to do things. Officers within the departments are primarily tracked by badge number. If you wanted to say file misconduct report, you'd use the badge number. Officer verification also works with badging. If you want proof that the plainclothes officer is indeed a police officer, not a random criminal, that's what you ask for. Hey bro, what's up, Bulldogs? 1992. Welcome in. They ran problems to ICE officers refusing to provide badges or otherwise demonstrate they're not random criminals. There's also clearly a lack of discipline involved in ICE generally. One ICE officer managed to get arrested for a DUI. There are widespread allegations of detainee mistreatment. That's one way to put it, and seemingly few mechanisms for discipline. I'm sympathetic to the idea that names and faces open the door to out-of-work harassment. Plus, clearly labeling immigration and customs enforcement would obviously make it much harder for ICE to do their jobs, as illegal immigrants would have to have much more fine-grained ability to determine what to avoid. But badging and prove you're not someone I should be shooting at are a much more reasonable baseline. I'm not sure ICE has many of those right now. Yeah, they're not. Can I rest my arm on your shoulder, bro? Yeah, sure, man. Thus far, I haven't said anything too unusual, but I was pondering this whole situation this morning. They elevated this from basic opinion to blog where they thought. Back during the Biden administration, there was an attempt to drastically increase the efficiency standards applied to several types of appliances, most notably gas stoves. The Biden administration DOE asserted that they totally weren't trying to ban gas stoves and that reporting as such constituted misinformation. But the original rule would have applied to more than 95% of gas stoves, and let's just say, my I don't want to ban gas stoves t-shirt is raising several questions. Doesn't sound like someone who you could reasonably do. Yeah, I don't think this guy is crazy or anything. Well, not that crazy. At the time, I held this rule up as a shining example of a broader problem. But Biden ran himself as a moderate. His staffers really weren't. In part because of the dynamics of the 2020 Democratic primary. Most of the wonk staffer class wound up making policy for Elizabeth Warren, whose whole pitch was that she had a plan for that. Those people ended up with the most policy-making authority in the Biden administration because they were the majority policy-making capability in the entire U.S. The most important attribute of left staffer is that they simply cannot help themselves from enacting million little friction regulations. The idea is that most of these changes are technocratic enough to get unnoticed, but passing them makes moderate progress, which adds up in several rounds. And this way, you can advance left-wing policy goals just by fighting on issues which are unimportant enough that surely nobody will fight you on this. This was a problem even before Joe Biden. For example, the paper straws, shower flow restrictions, or that time Obama tried to ban light bulbs. My goat. It's before my time. I don't know. Oh, it's just about LED shit. But Biden staffers use this strategically. Strategy unusually frequently and aggressively. Gas stoves like showers and even paper straws cross the line from mild enough to impose no political cause to intrusive in my life, really annoying and something I can vote against. More moderate Democrats I talked to at the time reacted with a combination of it's not that bad, there are more important things, and other similar reactions, but very few of them actually agreed with the premise that the government should ban most gas stoves. But if banning gas stoves is controversial among Democrats, and obviously no Republicans want it, why didn't the Democrats restrain the staffers for the sake of electability? The answer, I think, is that among people who care enough to work in efficiency standards at DOE, banning gas stoves is super uncontroversial. And also, part of the reason why everyone who works there chose that career. So not only is there nobody to push back and speak with the voices of the voters, but also if you worked there and spoke up, you would be uncool. Which sounds a little silly, but also it would make you unpopular among your peers in a way that would weaken your career as a bureaucrat who wants to ban things. ICE, I suspect the same way. The type of person who works at ICE has made it clear their mission is to advance something that is unpopular and cause political capital. Through selection effects, not only is there an echo chamber, but popping that echo chamber by expressing qualms about due process or electability makes you uncool in a way that would meaningfully damage your career. There's simply very few people who believe in immigration enforcement and internal discipline in the same way. There are very few people who believe in energy efficiency and consumer choice. The net result is that ICE is going to be a perpetual liability for the Trump administration, which costs political capital by virtue of its existence. Listen, I don't disagree, but at the same time, it seems like everything Trump does is like this. It's the inverse of the various green agencies under Democratic president. In other words, ICE is the Trump equivalent of Elizabeth Warren staffers. What's up, Justin? Welcome in. So how bad is that? The truly honest answer is I don't know. One of the big appeals of the Republican Party for me historically is that it never had Elizabeth Warren staffers in it, and now it does. I guess it's an artifact of having a party with an agenda. Generally speaking, as Republicans transition from standing athwart history, yelling stop, into an actual agenda. The agenda sorts creates staffers as an outgrowth of itself. But in this way, it's still pretty clear to me that Republican staffers are Republican staffers are still much better than Democrat staffers. I would never have a reason to interact with my immigration police, but Democrat staffers succeeded in making my showers suck in 1994. And I feel that in my life every day. The bottom the used car market still hasn't recovered from cash for clunkers, and I'm disappointed that I'm unlikely to be able to actually own a V8 sports car. But I guess I now know how moderate Democrats felt under Biden, cringing at the lavishness of political capital in such an undisciplined way on such ineffective causes. I'll be a little less smug about it next time. Wow. Dude, I just don't. Maybe my brain's broken or something, but that last paragraph was unhinged. What the fuck? Like, I don't even... Listen, I'm a neolib, okay? Okay? I'm not going to disagree. Well, one, Democrats just have a problem of populist running in general to some extent. And two, like, there is a staffer problem. Like, it is the case that Biden just had a lot of progressives in his staff that did a lot of, things like this or whatever. But, like, it just seems so unbelievably minor compared to the shit we're seeing now. Like, I don't know. Overregulation is an issue. Like, I'm a new lib, okay? Like, I don't disagree. It's just that, I don't, like, would I rather, like, Democratic staffers regulate the flow rate of shower heads, or Donald Trump take 10% ownership in lithium mine? Like, dog, like, bro. Look, this guy, her response went such well, I would choose this guy, but I don't think this guy himself would. Like, I don't think the guy who wrote the article or whatever himself would have that a policy. I don't know. He might be more anti-welfare state than I am. He might be. I mean, he said he's not an IVF hardliner, so maybe he's more like anti-abortion or something than I am. But, Also, for all the regulation we do, we'll never be Europe. I don't want to say we'll never be Europe, okay? But, We're not Europe. So far. By the way, I think tomorrow, did we confirm it ever? Question mark? Yes. Which means I should probably announce it. I think I will be debating North about stuff just because people on Twitter wanted it. So I think we'll be doing it at 9 p.m. tomorrow. EST. No Kings for Space, real. I think that might be part of what me and North talk about, because he likes that it was like directionless and whatever. And like, I agree, like, No Kings is broad enough that it's not gonna like have any particularly salient effects or whatever. But like, I like getting people politically involved is important. I think No Kings probably did that. People seeing people in their community stand up or whatever, like, probably spreads awareness and shit. So like, it probably had probably had a decent effect. And by the way, guys, remember Instagram.com/nonfun420, new Instagram posts, exclamation point Insta in the chat to see some of the clips of people I talked to while I was there. Also, it was live stream, so make sure to like, subscribe, follow on Twitch, Kick, and Twitter, and Rumble, and become a YouTube member, and super chat, and send gifts and subs and bits and bullshit. It likely influences corporations and institutions, makes them feel more comfortable resisting. Yeah, probably. I mean, I think just generally the cultural aspect of it is gonna be that. But you know, anyway, this is what the argument wrote about. Okay, I think that yeah, Jerusalem tomorrow at 10:16 a.m. The Berkeley No Kings march kicked off. By the way, I found out I should have gone to the other protest in the city I went to. I went to Greensboro, and there were 2 protests. One of them was set up by like the official, not official No Kings people, but one of them was set up by like an organization like Indivisible or whatever, which is some like broad Democrat organization. Okay, they were doing like a march. They set their protest up first and said, rather than doing a protest like we usually do downtown, we're going to do like a big march or whatever on this highway. So I went to that one because the other protest downtown was started later and it wasn't official. So I was like, you know, the march is probably going to be bigger. I was wrong about that. The downtown one was like way bigger still, but so I should have gone to that one. But regardless, Biden's FTC was harsher than the European regulatory body. Was it really? I mean, I guess maybe I don't know. Well, see, here's the issue: is that Europe doesn't even have firms big enough to merge. So like, you know, how do you even measure the? I don't know. You could be right, Easy Buddy. I don't know. If you had I bet the entry cost, you know, just generally higher in the EU, but I don't know about stuff like mergers or stuff like non-competes and things like that. That Biden did. The Biden FTC did. Okay, at Berkeley, No Kings march kicked off. The crowd full of men, women, seniors, babies, and dogs off the campus meetup spot to march west through the college town. 3 young women leading the pack giggled, realizing they hadn't fully thought out their chant strategy. They quickly conferred as they walked, leading the crowd down the sidewalk. What do we want? Democracy. The one with the bullhorn asked her friend nervously. They seemed unable to come up with anything better. As she began to call in response, 2 compatriots dutifully shouted as loud as they could. The solidarity friendship was not strong enough to sustain the chant for long, but it didn't matter. The streaming and mass protesters that followed waved their signs as cheerily as passing cars honked their approval. This is, you know, all the audio is fucked because so many cars were honking in the stream I did, but regardless. In the lead up to the Saturday protest, I had seen a handful of tweets, videos, and Reddit comments lamenting how lame, cringe, unradical participating in a hashtag No Kings protest would be. I try not to let social media be my assignment editor, which was lending fringe accounts greater discursive power than they really have, paradoxically even giving them more power. So I wasn't going to write anything based on this until I saw a piece in the Atlantic titled "Resistance is Cringe, but also effective." But it's also effective. Who is the article speaking to? To whom is the headline admitting that resistance is cringe? Certainly not the millions of people protesting. No, it's addressed to those who largely agree with the protesters, but can't help but squirm at the insufficiently sophisticated protest signs in inflatable costumes. Now, I don't want to be too hard on this piece. The author's overall point is that people were too harsh on hashtag resist libs because in spite of their cringe behavior, like wearing pussy hats in 2017, they do play an important electoral role. But I take issue with the idea there's any value to genuflectuating to the aesthetic criticisms of those who are primarily concerned with how edgy a protest looks. Protest aesthetics matter almost entirely as a practical matter for assuaging fears of radicalism and encouraging as many people as possible to join them. The American people are busy watching Young Sheldon and Chicago Fire. Truth nuke. I'd be watching Young Sheldon all day and making friendship bracelets for Taylor Swift's album release. They're not concerned with adhering to counter-cultural definitions of cool. Cringe is the year insult on the internet, which is the home of detached irony, a posture easier to fake when no one can see you. It's used really exploded in the 2000s and 2010s. Cringe, when used the verb, means to blend. Really, we're doing this. To bend one's head and body in fear or in a servile manner, and to have inward feeling of acute embarrassment and awkwardness. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, when using an adjective, it means causing feelings of acute embarrassment and awkwardness. So it's hashtag resistance cringe. To be honest, I find this question tedious. For one thing, claims of cringiness are unfalsifiable. People are acutely embarrassed as they watch one of the largest nonviolent protests in American history. Who am I to disagree? The problem is that many people find this question useful or even mildly interesting, while ICE is kicking, dragging, beating, and tasing U.S. citizens. While the military is allegedly killing foreign citizens in their own country's waters with no legal authority, while the president is illegally spending money, Congress is not authorized to insulate him from the political fallout of the shutdown. Most people admitting to their feelings of cringe argue that the hashtag #ResistLiveCringe is a necessary but embarrassing byproduct of building a protest movement. I did not find myself cringing while reporting on the protest, but moreover, I find any serious concern about cringeworthiness more cringe than anything anyone could possibly do while protesting the ongoing authoritarian takeover of the United States of America. True. The only time I cringed was when someone had a no billionaire sign, okay? And when I got rejected for interviews, and when people said no. Which only happened like twice or whatever, but regardless. Interesting level of detail in the word cringe. Yeah, no, still, it's silly. It's cringe, one might say, actually. Greg Swift from Los Alamos, New Mexico, was in Berkeley for a memorial service. But wherever you are, no King's Day, you have to find a protest, he told me. He was wearing an E Pluribus Unum t-shirt and carrying a sign reading, "Not our king, king of the grifters." True. You see King of the Coast called the OBBA not good? I did not do that. Initially, I thought he said he hated this bill or whatever. But if you link it, I can check it out. Bush was attending the protest alone. When I asked him why he came out, he said, "I'm old enough to remember the time when JFK was assassinated and RFK, Martin Luther King, was an unsettled time, but it never before felt like things could collapse in a more permanent way." I would have medicated in a different way than it did and consolidated it in mini clean energy into one credit. That is good. PTC not kill them, but on the whole, it's not good. Is he saying the bill on the whole is not good, or simply the Medicare cuts and the credits are not good? I think he's saying the bill is not good, right? Oh, so why didn't you vote for Trump? Kamala seemingly goes against all your views. Kamala goes against all my views because I like the single tax that Trump did. No, I think he's saying the whole bill's not good. Unbelievable. Heresy. Oh, well, this is true, nuke, but cringe, horrible, unbelievable. Is this article from the same org that has the YouTube channel of the same name? Yeah. Now change your opinion. I mean, it's just hard. Like, I'm not even, I mean, you guys should know, I'm not like a single pair dude or anything, but like, I do think equality is instrumentally important. Or like, I should not just say equality, but, you know, equitable access to healthcare is instrumentally important. And, you know, Medicaid probably did a decent job of providing that to a lot of people. Now, maybe if I read more about it, I would change my mind, but I don't know. Seems unlikely it'd be not good from my view, but I don't know. And I don't even think like the Medicare spending exploded under Biden. Well, yeah, the COVID shit obviously did. Medicaid, well, yeah. Which is why, by the way, I don't even know. I wish Democrats had done the terrorist or ICE raid shit with the shutdown rather than the healthcare thing. Healthcare is obviously the best issue for them politically, but I don't even know if extending the ACA subsidies is like good. I don't even know. I don't even know. or leave off. Zach Cringe, a middle-aged man named David Arnett. Arnett, I'm assuming that's how I'm pronouncing, came to the protests with his teenage daughter. He was dressed in a suit, tie, and hat. The front of a sign was the image of Donald Trump with the word corrupt on it. It's on the back. Almost like a note to self was a small sheet of paper, simply read, "I love America." He joked that he was wearing a suit so that people would know he was a respectable person and not an agitator, malcontent, or some scruffy beatnik. Is that cringe? I talked with the 80-year-old woman with the USA hat and American flag draped around her shoulders like a cape. When I asked her about it, she twirled and then said very seriously, "I'm taking back the flag base." At this, some of her fellow protesters cheered. The Republicans think they own the American flag. They do not, she said emphatically. Is that cringe? All I can say is I did not cringe once. Not when an elderly man with a hand-drawn picture of Trump on an upside-down crown, in the words, file stupid. Sorry, it's the file stupid. Told me he had never protested before. Now when I saw signs reading, "I prefer my ice crushed," or "It's giving small dictator energy." The obsession with cringe is a misdirected obsession with aesthetics. The aesthetics of protests are important, but they are only important as part of the larger question of efficacy, not on their own terms. For instance, the famous picture of Rosa Parks looking quietly out the bus window was posed, something that she was reluctant to do, but acquiesced due to the needs of the movement. And civil rights activists stressed the need for protesters to wear their Sunday best to calm fears of radicals in their ranks, and signal to the TV watching audience they were respectable Americans. The No Kings organizers were focused on two things: maximize the size of the protest and maintaining their peaceful nature. The event link for Berkeley protests at the official NoKings.org website said that a core principle behind all No Kings is committed to nonviolent. I read this 500 times on their website. Respect all participants, seek to de-escalate any potential confrontation with those who disagree with our values, to act lawfully at these events. Weapons of any kind, including those legally permitted, should not be brought to events. The inflatable costumes, American flags, and the presence of elderly children and dogs were a reflection of an intentional aesthetic choice to present a contrast between the absurd claims that everyone participating in the protest was Antifa and the stark reality of the utter normalcy, or at least harmlessness, of the actual participants. Harvard professor Erica Chenoweth, research on the efficacy of nonviolent protests, argues that peaceful demonstrations are more likely to work. It's more likely to draw in a critical mass of participants. I've seen people argue this before. I don't know. Is there like oh, this is a fucking book. I think the only paper I have on protests or whatever, this is like the only thing I've seen, and I forget where I even saw this started initially. I think I might have like I think I probably saw SDL cite this. I think that's where I got this from, whatever. It's about the Tea Party shit. And it's like, protest probably do influence political views and stuff, but I don't know. The set of people willing to engage in violent protests, a movement is smaller than a set willing to engage in nonviolent protests. So if you movement seen as peaceful, has a better chance of hitting the threshold, particularly with groups that are not politically sympathetic, like women and families. Additionally, soldiers and police are more likely to be sympathetic and reluctant to react harshly to movements with these groups present, reducing the likelihood of violent backlash, or at least ensuring violent backlash is extremely unpopular. Perhaps the most famous example is the Children's Crusade, the 1963 desegregation protests in Birmingham, Alabama, where organizers recruited school children and trained them in nonviolent resistance. Local officers sprayed fire hoses and loosed attack dogs into use, images that shocked the nation and prompted then President JFK to appear on television and throw his weight behind new civil rights legislation. The day before the marches, Ezra Levin, co-founder of Indivisible, talked to my colleague Jordan Wiseman about the strategic logic of nonviolence. Look, the regime has a monopoly of state violence, and they would like to use it. They don't necessarily need an excuse to use it. They'll make up an excuse. But if you give them an excuse, they will absolutely use it. Any successful movement depends on loss and loss of people. That means you cannot just rely on activists on the activist front. You need normal, everyday people standing up. And stand up they did. Data journalist G. Elliott Morris estimated that Saturday's protest may have been the largest one-day demonstration in over half a century. If you exclude the Earth Day protests, they are the largest in history. Between 5.2 million and 8.2 million people are estimated to have marched on Saturday, and despite their size, I could find no widespread reports of violence or disorder. Cringe is born in insecurity and fear. When teenagers cringe at their parents' interests, it comes from the fear that others may judge them. When a parent cringes at their rowdy toddler, it comes from fear that others will judge their parenting. Even when alone, we have constructed an internal arbiter of cool who we cringe in front of when our dad pulls out toe socks and our toddler says something rude, or our toddler says something rude. The cringing party sees itself as a powerless minority afraid of the social power of the arbiter cool, who can mete out judgment, humiliation as punishment. So when left-leaning commentators cringe at hashtag resistive grandmas, who are they afraid of? Whose social power are they cowering in fear of? It's not the people with actual power. Republicans, who themselves are trying to portray the protest lame, a line that conflict with the charge that marches were filled with Antifa. After all, I don't know of anyone who simultaneously cringes in embarrassment at a pussy hat and thinks that Senator Mike Lee is an arbiter of cool. True. So there's going to be the gift of him falling. But that wasn't Mike. That was fucking Schumer, right? Or McConnell, not Schumer. McConnell. Incredible. I'm forced to conclude that the fear comes out of being labeled as uncool by leftists on the internet. Fear that if you straightforwardly covered a protest and a clarion call in defense of democracy, someone will make fun of you for being a shitlib. And what could be more cringe than worrying about that? True. The most impressive, or this is one of the most impressive things about a protest, massive people, and like literally no one gets crazy. They don't even leave trash when they're done. Roads are doing spotlights after events, like unbelievable, well-behaved, well-disciplined, and calm. Personally, I love it. Yeah, it was awesome. It's impressive considering the size, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen any. I know the protest I went to was entirely clean, entirely peaceful. There was like nothing. There weren't like a fuck ton of people to one I went to, but there's like nothing interesting in that respect. And I didn't see any, as far as I know, none of that was like widespread at all. Yeah. Oh, I'm tweeting something. The promo thing. Would you debate King of the Coast on OBV being that good? I imagine it would come down to some very marginal disagreement on stuff, but if you like, I would. I don't know why we keep asking this question. I talk to a lot of people about a lot of stuff, and King of the Coast is invited on whenever. I would do it if he wanted to, but that's all basically on him. Mine was easily like 7 to 10 times bigger than our hands off protest. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I did not see many people go to the hands off protest. Yeah, hold on, just real quick. PPG just sent this in Discord about the fucking senator. For me personally, I took a candidate with regrettable tattoo over one who steadfastly supported a genocide. Wow, incredible. Why even say this? Because it's PPG. I don't know if you're familiar with who PPG is, but I don't understand what the No Kings protest did. I mean, like I said, probably built some amount of community, probably made people more willing to stand up. Probably spread some amount of awareness. The fact that people saw headlines, the fact that people saw people in the community protesting, probably spread some amount of awareness for fucked up shit Trump's doing. By the way, go like or repost the tweet and stuff, people. Woohoo. Probably like got people more involved generally. Like it's probably more likely that if you, the same way like even if your individual vote doesn't affect something or whatever, someone's individual vote's not going to affect something. The fact that you do vote and are like to some extent bought into the system, you know, probably does have some effect on stuff. So probably made people more likely to phone bake, probably made people more likely to go to future protests, probably made more people more likely to pay attention to the news cycle, even stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to have like a huge major effect or anything, but you know, I don't think Trump is sitting in his office going, oh shit, I was going to deploy ICE to this fucking city, but they didn't know King's protest. I guess I can't. But I do think it will have some general shift in attitude, some general shift in, or spread some general awareness and get people at least marginally more involved. I mean, there was a study, like I said, I mentioned earlier. This was the one. This is the one thing I've seen in it. I think I saw SDL cite this or whatever about the Tea Party stuff. Can protests cause political change, or are they merely symptoms of underlying shifts in policy preferences? We address this question by studying the Tea Party movement in the United States, which rose to prominence through coordinated rallies across the country on Tax Day, April 15, 2009. We exploit variation in rainfall on the day of these rallies as an exogenous source of variation in attendance. We show that good weather at this initial coordinating event had significant consequences for the subsequent local strength of the movement, increased public support for Tea Party positions, and led to more Republican votes in the 2010 midterm elections. Policymaking was also affected as incumbents responded to large protests in their district by voting more conservatively in Congress. Our estimates suggest that significant multiplier effects and additional protests are increasing the number of Republican votes by a factor well above 1. Together, our results show that protests can build political movements rather than ultimately affect policymaking. And they do so by influencing political views rather than solely through the revelation of existing policy preferences. I confirm that Trump was going to deploy ICE somewhere, but no King's protest site scared. I'm bad that you consider resigning. This is true. Right, exactly. Like, I do there is probably, like, I don't think Trump personally would do this or whatever. I do think, you know, based on the size of the protest or whatever, like that the bigger the size of the protest generally, the sort of higher the kind of chilling effect is going to be for decisions that the administration does make. Probably not necessarily Trump himself, but, you know, for people within his administration, you know, if only 1 million people would come out to protest, and only in big democratic cities, that would, they probably, you know, just feel more empowered than, you know, 5 million people coming out to protest across the entire country. And the downside, Tea Party is the source of conflation between GOP and populism. Well, you know, it's not, the study's not meant to assess whether it had good outcomes or not. It was just meant to, you know, assess whether the protests were effective. It does irritate the admin for people who desire narrative control. These are annoying. Yep. And are in their head rent free a bit, yeah. But, you know, I don't think it's going to be like some, oh shit, we really got to end the government shutdown now. They called us the king, but, you know, regardless. What the hell? What the hell? I think we had more than 24 people there.
Thank you for joining us.
Bro, it's not 24. What? Bro, This isn't even like, this is further up the road. I remember seeing these people, but I'm pretty sure it was way like back there. This is further up the road than I was even. There was even more people. I don't think that's a different city or something, but regardless. Wait, so this is the number of, yeah. We had more than that, but regardless. Okay, regardless. Why do we have to outlaw medical underwriting? I don't even know. What does that refer to, Easy Money? I gotta read through this paper, probably. Excellent paper showing that even when foreign producers eat some U.S. Tariff cost, American consumers end up paying more than a full tariff amount because the local supply chains markups, which are a common feature of all goods transacted in the United States. It's like around 1/4 of tariff revenue is paid by foreign producers, while the remainder is paid within the United States. For example, wine that costs $5 at the border prior to tariffs is our point estimate implies sorry, $1.59 a higher consumer cost relative to $1.19 in tariff paid per bottle. Hence, at the level the consumer to dollar pass through exceeds 100%. Hold on, I think it didn't highlight some of the wrong thing, but I should download it and just run through this paper. I saw this tweet and bookmarked it before the stream. Please rank to do path of the Lonerbox debate is just concluded. Is it interesting? Basically, illegal to charge people premiums in line with their health risk post ACA. Oh yeah, well, it was I understand there are issues with this, but there's supposed to be risk adjustment on the back end, right? Easy Money. Bruh. Am I just if Sci-Hub doesn't have it, what else would have it? It's not just, yeah. I don't think any of my other shit would have it if Sci-Hub doesn't. Paolo thinks he's conservative, but he's just MAGA. And he's also Australian, so it makes no sense. This is truth. If we completely outlawed ACA messed up the system. Wait, what do you mean? There's risk. Oh, that's a misunderstanding. ACA risk adjustment. It's like consumers on the front end all get can't get charged more for shit, but healthcare insurers in the back end are, I thought, compensated for that. Limits factors that can be used to charge consumers greater health insurance premiums. Yeah, I understand this. But shouldn't this I thought that was the point of the risk adjustment on the back end. Insurers are no longer able to deny coverage or charge higher premiums based on pre-existing conditions. These aspects of the ACA, along with tax credits for low and middle income people buying insurance on their own in new health insurance marketplaces, make it easier for people with pre-existing conditions to gain insurance coverage. However, if not accompanied by other regulatory measures, these provisions could have unintended consequences for the insurance market. Namely, insurers may try to compete by avoiding sick enrollees, blah, 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 blah. This brief explains three provisions of the ACA: risk adjustment, reinsurers, and risk corridors that were intended to promote insurer competition on the basis of quality, like, we're supposed to compensate for this in the back end. Now, it's definitely not, from what I've heard, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but this is way less optimal than pre-ACA system. I've never done deep dive on ACA shit. It wouldn't surprise me, but I do think there is a genuine problem with pre-existing conditions that needs to be somehow accounted for. But I don't know what the optimal way to deal with it is. Government regulation comes things up. Real. Okay, I truthfully don't think I care about this. I don't care.
Tens of thousands. Our state where we have data from the entire country for CSA, again, they're about equally represented. And that's on page 38 of the SNU WIC.
Well, I don't know if it's equally represented, because I do have statistics from the Ministry of Justice that you haven't responded to that show that they're up to 1/3 of sexual assaults.
I have responded to it.
No, you just said that you don't believe it.
Is that all I said? Did I not tell you why there was maybe an issue with that?
I mean, this data was drawn from the Police National Computer by the Ministry of Justice following an FOI by the Center for Migration Control.
No idea what I'm talking to right now. We've had the development of migrants speaking slightly different with like accents and dialects in London since the 60s, 70s, 80s. Have you been to the UK? Like, what is this dialect you're talking about?
Dude, like multicultural London English is like literally almost unintelligible in some ways from standard English.
Like it's I'm not gonna know any of the shit because it's the UK. like in America, I at least know the disputes people have between the data sets from the Center for Immigration Stuff, like the CSI and the stuff that Cato puts out, right? I don't, yeah, and the FAIR study people cite a lot. I'm not going to know that shit with the UK. I don't think I care. Regulation of intentional gum is just a matter. We'll replace it, and the consequences of no gum are far worse. I work in a factory. Annoying safety regulations are based. I mean, I'm not like. I don't think. Believe it or not, I'm not 100% anti-regulation guy. Guys, some marginal regulation is probably good. In fact, actually, technically, there are situations where like regulations are good for growth because they reduce like supplier holdups because they make transactions less uncertain, basically. Hold on. Anyone know if Sci-Hub doesn't have a working paper on NBER? Do you think ACA counts as some though? On the whole, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. Does the library fucking, you gotta open that shit in Tor now, don't you, or whatever. Yeah, I don't think I might just have to wait for fucking Sci-Hub to get it, or for it to, presumably they'll release it for free on NBR at some point.
So is fucking Ouija speak. I don't. What are you talking about? That is.
I'm just saying, like,
but that's not a new thing. That's not multicultural London speak. Whatever you call it, it's not a new thing.
This is the thing. I'm not even necessarily. I'm not even putting shit on that necessarily dialect, because I get your point where you're saying, well, there's lots of different dialects and stuff like that. I'm not even putting shit on that dialect. The only reason I'm bringing that is to point to the fact that the migration numbers are so large that assimilation is not necessarily occurring. The migration rate is happening at such a high rate that literally new dialects are forming because of the large number.
Like I have no.
It's not to investigate genocidal mindsets of the Muslim migrants. It's to give victims and a place where they can actually go to talk to people so that they can get in front of authorities and get.
Wow.
Like a really recent migrant who's like a Somali Islamist extremist and stuff like that.
I mean, the world is full of migrants, and you seem to have a very low threshold for wanting them deported, to the point that they can answer a survey question in a tribal way that supports violence. So that's like a lot of Irish people.
Just watch it while playing a game. I don't want to watch. I don't care about this enough. I might watch the healthcare shit while playing a game. I don't understand, lol. I mean, it's exactly what I expected.
Welcome back to the marginal.
Drew's gonna say a simulation, open borders, blah blah blah, migrant enclaves, and then Lonerbox is gonna say, and he's gonna say crime, and Lonerbox is gonna say, well, actually, these statistics show immigrants don't commit more crime, and within 3 generations they do assimilate, and it seems like economically they don't. They might have some benefit. Like it's gonna be that shit, bro. He lives in Australia. He does live in Australia. Well, can my computer handle Skate 3 and this at the same time? We're gonna find out, aren't we now? I gotta open. Get through this. Skate 3 needs a 6080, sorry. Well, I mean, my computer can handle Skate 3 perfectly fine. Well, insofar as an emulator can handle it perfectly fine. When I'm not streaming, but sometimes when I'm streaming. Not fun. Debate UN case you want to watch something. Debate start at the 1 hour, 16-minute mark. What? Oh, you just linked the same thing? Yeah, I don't. Anyway, it just went over. I don't care. I don't care. Maybe I'll watch it off stream, but I don't care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Marginal Revolution podcast. I'm sitting here, of course, with Alex Tabarrok, and this is George Mason University, so we don't call it the cost disease, because we know that so many diseases can be cured, or at least alleviated. We call it the Baumel effect. Now, Alex has written an entire book, or you could...
Hold on. I gotta have my notes real quick.
A monograph on the Baumel effect. So I'm going to start by turning it over to him, but you're also going to hear from me why I'm pretty skeptical about a lot of these Baumel effect arguments. Alex?
Big surprise, you're skeptical, Tyler.
Yes.
All right, let me start by giving what I consider because I think the Baumel effect is a very deep and important insight. So let me give a very
Derek
broad
Thompson,
overview
I
of
must
what
ask. I mean, I honestly don't know that much about Derek Thompson outside of his work on abundance. I really don't know much about him.
See as the Baumel effect. The deep insight that I see the
Give a
Baumel
link
effect
to his interview, sure.
giving is that prices are relative prices. Okay, so think about a very simple world with just.
I know some libertarians who are anti-inflation and pro-deflation. Yeah, that's not a super uncommon position of like libertarians to be like pro-mild deflation at the very least.
Goods.
Thank you for choosing not to care. You're welcome. You're so welcome.
We have services and we have manufactured goods. And suppose we just normalize units so that at the very beginning, 1 unit of services trades for 1 unit of manufactured goods, 1-to-1 relative price.
I don't know where I should.
Now then suppose that the productivity of the manufactured goods increases. So now we are producing twice as many manufactured goods from the same amount of capital and labor as before. Now, holding all else constant.
I bet they're going to cite this paper, but one thing that's interesting, or one thing that's cool, interesting. Maybe it's not really cool. There's like a paper, I think it's called like, is U.S. veterinary care also uniquely inefficient? And it just shows like the cost of healthcare in the U.S. for humans and veterinary care, like they follow like very similar trends. I think healthcare has grown a little more, but that's just evidence of, the bumble effect playing a big role in that. Dude, I did all the shit I want to do.
Okay, this means that the price of the manufactured goods has to fall in half. Okay, we're producing twice as much, producing the same number of services as before, so the price goes, you could say, from $1 to $1 to $1 to 50 cents. I mean, that sounds pretty good because the services are the same price and the manufactured goods are now a lot cheaper. Okay, but with inflation and other things, this is also equivalent to having the services at $2 and the manufactured goods at $1. And now you look at this and you think, oh my gosh, what's going on? Services are twice as expensive.
Not running as fast as oh shit, I threw. Oh no, it's over.
They're the same, they're $1. Services are becoming so much more expensive. So, and this is true, right? It is true that the price of services in terms of manufactured goods has doubled. We now have to pay twice as many manufactured goods to get the same unit of services. And yet, we're of course better off. This is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. And also, this idea, it seems totally simple, right? It's very, very obvious that the way I've expressed it. And yet, I think the essence of this idea is what explains all of the hand-wringing over why has healthcare become so expensive? Why has education become so expensive? Why has daycare become so expensive? It's all about the fall in the price of manufactured goods, the change in the relative price of services. And actually, this is more of an illusion than an idea that services are somehow becoming less affordable.
When I observe something being called a law, the next thing I see is that it stops holding for some period of time. So there's one version of the Baumol effect where you just say different things have different rates of productivity growth, and ex post we can identify winners and losers. That's clearly true, but that's tautologous, right? The more important version, which is what Baumol and Bowen put forward in the 1960s, is that ex ante we can identify where productivity growth will be high and where it will be low. And that I don't buy. So you look at higher education, for more than a decade now, the price in real terms has been falling. I'm not sure I know why, but it's certainly not the Baumol effect, and it's not just for a year or two. And it's funny to think, for instance, that higher education is a Baumol-esque kind of sector. For one thing, the laborers in it, we're two of them.
Yes.
We work for below market rates, and we get paid these non-pecuniary benefits. We could earn more doing other things. At least we like to think we could. So the wage effect seemed funny, and just the whole way higher ed is organized, how it runs, how it works, it seems to do with factors of organizational incentives, which also account for a lot of the cost inflation. And there's some more unified theory that gets you, well, the costs are screwed up sometimes, and the product quality is screwed up sometimes. And it's not so closely connected to the fact that, in some other sector, the computer programmers are being paid more. So when it comes, for instance, to higher ed, I'm quite a skeptic. I don't think it's the best place to start to understand the problems of higher education.
Well, it's funny that you should say that because, our colleague, Brian Kaplan, is always on at me for exactly the same reasons. He'll be very happy.
Of course he will be. He'll think he persuaded me. But in fact, that's not the actual story.
So Brian says, as you do, that, look, Alex, how can you say it's the Baumol effect? I mean, look around. Can't you see that our university is run so inefficiently? It's a nonprofit. We don't have price incentives. Of course, the costs are so high. But look, I have a couple of responses to this. First of all, you can explain, of course, the university is run inefficiently, okay, obviously, but that's a level effect, okay? What we need to explain is why year after year after year you have this grinding, ever, it seems, increasing relative price. I mean, this has been going on for well over 100 years, okay?
Truly incredible photos I got here. Let's go.
So you can go back into as early as the 1920s or even earlier, and people then are complaining about the rising cost of healthcare and also of education. So it's this long-term trend. And this long-term trend, I mean, it has happened under highly regulated systems. It's happened under less regulated systems. It's happened when the university's education was more free market, when it was less free market. It just seems to go on and on and on. And that, I think, is what the Baumol effect explains.
But I mean, let's do it one at a time. Level effects often turn into rate effects because a crummy organization just tends to fall apart. But I don't think the price has been going up for like a century and a quarter. First of all, the last 10 to 15 years, clearly falling. But in earlier times especially, product quality is getting so much better.
I don't know. My understanding, the sticker price for college has still been going up, even in real terms. It's just the net price after financial aid that's been falling. I mean, I guess I could be wrong on that, but the thing I've seen is like Brookings college costs since 2006. This is what I've seen on it, I think. But the sticker price has still been going up, from my understanding, basically on trend. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's since, 2020. It flattened a little bit, but...
better. I wouldn't say product quality is getting better right now necessarily, But you look at what was taught in 1920 compared, say, to our textbook, just to toss in the obligatory plug, or in entire areas of science, biology, huge gains in product quality brought by labor, of course, which is supposed to be the stagnant factor. And I just think you have a very varied pattern. Sometimes real price goes up, sometimes it goes down.
So let me take both of those issues in turn. First of all, the last 10 years. Now,
Sure, you can say that if you don't factor in all the
bottle
booze I
effect,
drank in
people don't appreciate.
college.
The bottle effect actually says, right, that the relative price of these service goods should be going up faster when manufacturing productivity or the productivity in other sectors of the economy is increasing. So actually, you get the biggest Baumol effect in the 1960s and the 1970s when growth is actually quite high. So when I look at the fact that in the last 10 years or so, the price of education has not been increasing in relative terms, I'm actually worried about that, okay? Because that says that manufacturing productivity hasn't increased. And we know that that is true. So that's a sign of stagnation.
No, now you're wanting to have it both ways. So the entire premise is that manufacturing productivity grows at a higher rate. And in fact, by a lot of measures since 1987, manufacturing productivity hasn't gone up much at all.
Well, it's gone up since 87, but in the last 10 years, it's been actually flat. And that explains why the price of
my understanding
education has also been flat.
There's a little bit of controversy over this because depending on how you measure computers, it's been flat for longer. But if you look at manufacturing productivity since 2008 or whatever, has been like relatively stagnant. Again, there's one paper I'm pretty sure I have it downloaded. I forget what it's called. If you exclude certain types of computers, then manufacturing productivity has been flat for much longer.
That sectors can go up at higher or lower rates of productivity growth compared to other sectors, and there's not this ex ante generalization that we ought to hang our hats on.
Okay, so that's one point, the last 10 years. Let me get to the second point, quality, and then I'll come back to the third point.
Quality, I'm ready on quality. Let's hear it.
Well, look, it's true in some sense that quality of education and healthcare has gone up, but there's no reason that should imply higher prices. Like in almost all sectors of the economy, when you have higher quality, you usually get lower prices. I mean, look at electronics and computers and manufactured goods. You get higher quality and lower prices at the same time.
What? Oh,
so,
shit.
Yeah,
I was reading chat. It doesn't matter. I still win.
I'll grant you that.
Why do you think Drew Pavlou is a midwit? I mean, first, I don't know if I have said he's a midwit. I don't know if I would classify him as a midwit. I don't think I do think that Drew Pavlou is not like super seriously interested in doing complex research and complex arguments. Like, it seems like he's more interested in Twitter shit posting and whatever bullshit. But, not that there's anything wrong with that, okay? I make some excellent Twitter shit posts, which is why you should all do !X in the chat to go follow me on Twitter so you can see when I goon post every day, because I'm always gooning.
But in general, higher quality does not mean higher prices. So the fact that we're getting that, it seems like an excuse. Oh, well, prices have gone up in education, but, our textbook is so much better than the previous book. There's no reason. It is better, I grant you, but there's no reason why the price should be higher, right?
That's not the reason. A lot of the reason might be third-party payment in some of these sectors. But keep in mind, the whole Baumol framework, it doesn't deal with changes in quality well at all. I once had an exchange with Baumol at a conference in Boston. And I said,
maybe it would be more applicable to a libertarian Jubilee guy. Pavlou's just
35 minutes to play a string quartet. Back then, it takes them 35 minutes now. But I said, isn't productivity fantastically high in that sector? Because people prefer to listen to, well, now it would be Taylor Swift. And it's sad aesthetically that they're bored with Mozart. But the leap from Mozart to Taylor Swift is a phenomenal leap in terms of consumer surplus. And Baumol said back to me, he got very mad, actually. He insisted it's all a story about fixed product quality. But once you say that, you're just ruling out a priori new ideas as a source of productivity improvements. And of course, labor-intensive sectors will, of course, because the way they do well often is by
who's the most midweight guy you know? Maybe Tyler, average debate enjoyer.
Once you introduce new ideas, you could push it a bit too far in the other direction and say, well, look, popular music, people get bored by it very quickly. So its value asymptotically approaches zero, and then someone comes along with a new song, and the productivity gain is like 1,000% a year. Now, that's also not quite the right way to think about it. It's something about Lancastrian bundles, characteristics. But still, I don't think the whole framework accommodates changes in product quality very well. And Baumol himself knew that. He wanted to rule it out of consideration.
Well, but product quality increases in manufactured goods as well. And it's not at all obvious.
Yeah, and it's not clear where the effect is higher or lower.
No, I think it is clear where the effect is higher or lower. I mean, you can look. If we do focus, I don't want to I don't want to follow Baumel too closely, but if we do focus on a fixed good, then it is clear that for a live performance,
You're voting for Mills or Platner, dude. I don't live in Maine. Really like
the Baumel,
I don't know what I would do, honestly.
It's because it's a very
kill
general
myself.
theory that explains a lot of different sectors. We've talked about healthcare and education, okay? But here's another sector which is completely different, okay? I bashed my car recently, okay? Nothing, just a little minor fender bender, really. But to fix the side panel, it just had a big scratch in it, okay? That was like $3,500, okay?
Yes.
So it's like a tenth the value of the entire car.
This happened to Natasha too, except someone hit her car.
Yeah, okay. So just to fix the
How many head do you vote for? I don't know. I honestly don't know anything about Mills. I only know the like controversial stuff about the planter dude or whatever. I mean, probably like truthfully, I can't even tell you Mills' first name, unironically. I mean, like probably Mills. Like, I don't know. The other dude just seems unhinged, and he doesn't even have my ideal policy. He's like a Bernie bro dude. So, you know.
The car was running fine. The engine was fine. The wheels were fine. Transmission's fine. We're just fixing an aesthetic problem. Is one thing. Now, what's the general point? The general point is that the price of the car has gone way down.
Anti-union, pro-Israel, pro-filibusters against you. Okay, base. I mean, I'm not like that pro-Israel or anything, but other than that, okay, based. Let's go.
The repair services, okay, have gone way up, and it's not just in relative terms, and it's not just for automobiles. You know, when was the last time you took your shoes to the cobbler? Okay, I don't even know.
Not that long ago, in fact.
It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. Or when you had, you take your clothes to the tailor to be fixed. You know, my mother, thinks that the new generation just wastes products, and they don't know the value of fixing things. But actually, it's not that the new generation is more wasteful or less concerned about saving money. It's that the new generation faces different relative prices, and it's just much easier to buy new clothes than it is to fix the old. It's not easier, it's much cheaper to buy new clothes than it is to fix the old clothes, because the new clothes are basically made in a manufactured process. The repairing the clothes takes a lot of labor. So we don't repair clothes, we don't repair shoes, much more expensive to repair cars. So there's an entire sector very different from healthcare and education, and I think Baumel explains it very well.
I don't think that example is going to help you. So recall what I said near the beginning. That ex post, you can always pick sectors with lower productivity growth and say that was the cost disease. But ex ante, if you're trying to predict where productivity growth rates will be low, car repair is one of the last places I would look. For one thing, electric vehicles, you don't have to fix the engine anymore. There won't be an engine in the traditional sense. So those costs will plummet, and engines can be very difficult, very costly to fix. Robots, of course, if there's anything they'll be able to do, probably, we hope, it would be car repair, right, with the standard set of repeated problems. So I would predict moving forward that you have a lot of productivity growth in that area. And from the ex ante predictive point of view, I don't think cost disease is so useful there. But I'll grant you the point that ex post, you can look at low productivity sectors and say it often has to do a lot with labor costs. Of course, that would be true. It could have to do with capital costs as well, or land costs.
It's post, we don't value durability of goods as much as due to changing prices. Well, that's true. So it's a TLDR on her, I believe. Is she actually a proven track record? Legislatively, the problem is she's 78. God, I hate Democrats. Oh my God, why do we have to have so many old people? Oh wait, I forgot. Is it? Oh shit! I should have done my stupid fucking flip first.
A significant chunk of GDP.
Well, it's not just that it's a significant chunk of GDP. It's the one thing that we do want to go up in price. That is that economic growth is all about making labor more valuable, right? So it's not surprising that with economic growth that you have higher labor costs.
What do you think's been the productivity growth rate in the music sector over the last 30 years? Just like to test how you would apply the theory. Like, I want to say it's been very, very high, but I agree this is debatable.
I think it's been, I mean, look, if you think about the changing number of musical genres and so forth, it's gone up a little bit, but of course that's always been true. It's not entirely obvious to me that, the shift from to rock and roll or electric music, is that bigger than, happened, in the 1900s?
No, well, I have the universal jukebox now. YouTube, Spotify, you can add to that list.
I guess I was thinking a question to ask you because you never stream and I have to think of them with a short period of time.
I think it's a super high.
First of all, never stream as harsh. I have been bad about streaming the last fucking month because I've been lazy and tired and shit. And I did start school, but I mean that was only recently. But never is harsh. All right. Thing I never do is edit. I do need to edit. Tell myself I'm going to edit, then I don't.
high growth sector for over the last 30 years.
Yeah, if you define the sector large enough.
Well, I'm not defining it that large. Stuff I listen to and enjoy, and it has notes and melody and harmony. That's my definition of music.
Well, define it as live performance, and live performance has clearly become much, much more expensive, right? I mean, it now costs $150 to go to a concert, right? So, that's just and it has become much more expensive. An opportunity cost, right?
People prefer recorded music most of the time because you do it at home. So you're defining away product quality improvements.
No, because
if you let me toss out the improvements people care about, productivity's been stagnant, is what you're saying. Even live performance, you can debate whether that has become so terrible. Most music is heard in bars, right? You and I may not like it. We may not think of it as real music. I don't go to bars. I'm not sure what the prices are there. I would just say it's an open question. The music typically is free. There's the price of the alcohol, which I have no knowledge of. But it's not the story of, I have to pay so much to hear the Rolling Stones. You look at live performance music, it's a very complicated story.
Well, what makes it complicated, I think, is that people are becoming richer. And that's another advantage of the Baumol effect, okay? In that the reason you have the change in relative price from the Baumol effect is always because of productivity improvements. So it always comes with people getting richer, so people can want to buy more. Now, contrast the story that you want to tell with education, for example, or healthcare, perhaps.
I'm interested in arguing with a guy in the green shawl. I think Tyler Cohen's done better so far. Yeah.
Well, if it's just inefficiency, then people should shift away from education. If the price is going up because costs are going up, because it's becoming more difficult to produce the same value, then people should be consuming other goods. But if it's the Baumol effect, then you can simultaneously have a rising relative price and people consuming more because of the income effect. So we're still going to have income effects which naturally come with the Baumol effect. So I think that's another advantage of the Baumol effect.
Now, we haven't talked about healthcare yet, so why don't we do that for a few minutes?
Sure.
So it seems to me product quality in many, not all.
One thing, by the way, there's got to be some paper about something similar to this at least out there, okay? I want to know, I assume the answer is yes. I want to know, has Spotify increased music industry employment? Because people complain all the time about Spotify not paying... Oh my god, that counts as a bail, dude. I'm retarded. People count all the time... They complain all the time about like Spotify not paying artists enough and everything, but almost certainly, right? It's probably increased the number of people who can be full-time musicians and or full-time producers, right? Like almost certainly. Like I would imagine, like it's gotta, right? Because the barrier to entry is just so much lower, and consumption is probably higher too, right? Like I don't know.
All areas is up a great deal, right? Life expectancy, if you take care of yourself, a big if, but it's much higher. You suffer much less. People used to be a wreck at 70. Now you say 70 is the new 55, whatever. I'm not saying that's all from healthcare, but a lot feeds into the product quality being better. And of course, the prices are a big problem in the United States in particular. But third-party payment is clearly a major part of that story. Increasing government subsidies.
Why is it not letting me flip?
Clearly a major part of that story. I don't start with the Baumol effect as a way of thinking about our healthcare sector. I just think it's one thing in the mix. And pharmaceuticals, which has been phenomenal, right?
Sure.
And now GLP-1 drugs. Well, you could say they're capital, but inventing those is in turn labor intensive at some level. They weren't invented using AI, right? So that too is labor intensive, but they've been great for productivity in healthcare. So I just don't really see how the story applies in a simple way.
So, I mean, it's interesting that you are denying the thing which the Baumol effect is intended to explain, which is the rising cost of services. But that, I think, is a hard road to hoe, because almost everybody agrees with me that these things have become more expensive. Now,
no, not in quality adjusted terms. I think it's highly unclear.
I was going to say, his point is about quality, right?
Has improved more over the last 40 years.
Right, but one of them has gone up in price and the other has gone down in price, even with quality improvements. So, again, I don't think...
But the price of statins, for me, has fallen from infinity to whatever it is that it costs now.
Sure.
And that's a huge price decrease. So I don't want to say that its price has just gone up. When you realize the price of these medications used to be infinity, I don't know how to put that in the index number, but it gets back to the point that it's not a simple comparison.
It's not a simple comparison, but going to the doctor is just much more expensive than it used to be, and people are spending a larger share of their income on these service sector industries.
Part of that's just also because they demand more healthcare.
There are legal restrictions. If you allowed telemedicine to India, which is a relatively new technology, it would be much cheaper. Now, I agree we don't allow that, but clearly there could be the price of that has just been falling under a regime of, more or less unfettered markets.
Okay. Well, I want to pick up on that for two reasons. First of all, you said that ex ante, we're not able to predict which sectors rise in price.
Not typically, at times. Like I'll predict auto repair is going to do very well, but in general, it's not the simple story.
But I would say that people have been pointing to education, healthcare, also repair sectors for a very long period of time. As I said, I can go back to the 1920s, I can go back to the 1950s, 1970s.
And they're right about two of them and wrong about two of them.
No. They're basically, you go back and look at what Baumol was first talking about, and he is able to make the same arguments that he made in 1955. He's able to make them in 2025. His book, I guess, 2020 or something like that.
Dude.
It's those sectors have remained fairly constant. Now,
I don't
this
think
relates
that's at all true, but go
okay,
on.
but all right, all right.
Oh, it
This
doesn't
relates to
count.
the second point, which you raised about India, which I'll make 2 points about. First of all, yes, we can reduce the costs of service sector industries by relying on lower opportunity cost labor. Okay,
Which you
that's a good
legalize
thing. Now,
telemedicine
the
from
second
India.
interesting thing about labor, this is the more important,
Eh,
and it
I
goes
don't
to
know.
predictability,
Well,
and it goes to whether these things can be explained. When you and I go to India, okay, what do we see that's really cheap in India?
Haircuts.
Haircuts, right? Yes, it's services.
Real.
Okay, healthcare is cheap if you can afford
Honestly,
it.
don't
okay?
know. I feel
Healthcare,
like
that is it is cheap for us.
the
It is
intuitive
cheap
answer for
not
me is
necessarily
yes,
cheap for
but
people in India, but it is cheap for us because you can get fantastic nursing care, 24-hour nursing care, for example. In India, you and I never drive a car. We are always chauffeured. 2 reasons for that: 1, the roads are insane. 2, it is very cheap to have a chauffeur, to have a home cook. Even
you mean
people
deregulate the
of,
medical industry?
middle class
Like,
incomes in India,
well,
you know,
that
they
would be,
have
I guess,
drivers
some
and they
type
have
of
cooks,
deregulation.
and they have every single day they have people clean their houses, right? Okay, so exactly. So it's very telling to me that exactly the sorts
Could
of
it? Am I hitting the wrong fucking buttons? Can it let me do my grind?
things which are cheap in India today were cheap in our past. So the past is a foreign country, and a foreign country is the past, right? So I think that the Baumol effect and the Balassa-Samuelson effect, okay, are really the same thing. The Baumol effect explains which sectors have been rising in price over time. Balassa-Samuelson explains why services are cheaper in poor countries, and the reason is that
counts,
in
baby.
India, the productivity of a haircut is about the same as here. My barber in India is just as good as my barber in the United States, but my barber in India does not have the opportunity to work in a high productivity manufacturing sector. So his wages are low, and that means that the price of a haircut is low in India, so we always get haircuts in India.
You love to cite India in this context, but it becomes much more
Cuisines
complicated
are
when you think
halal
about
ad? I don't
significant
believe
parts
so.
of Sub-Saharan Africa. So India, in
To
part,
flip?
does so
I've done a
because they
lot
are
of
mix
flips.
of fairly cheap labor and extremely well-organized networks. Just like, you know, that movie from a few years back about the Indian networks that deliver the boxed lunches to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So India has incredible logistics. They have the English language. At least in some sectors, they have standards of quality. Poor countries in general, they're not the places you should necessarily go to get your haircut. There can
Think
be
I can do a
problems of
flip here.
sanitation, problems of training, just problems of general safety, getting to the barber shop. A lot of services, manufactured goods for that matter, also in Africa, are really quite expensive, especially when you adjust for quality. So India, it's like cherry picking or curry picking, whatever you want to call it. I don't, in most poor countries, want to do services.
Well, there are many reasons why poor countries are poor, and many services also involve the complex networks and technology. I mean, for example, it is the case that, you know, technically, you know, electricity, that's a service, okay, right? But obviously it relies not on labor per se, not on a huge amount of labor. It's a service which is provided by technology. Some of the other things you mentioned, you know, streaming services, you know, for music and for movies and Netflix and so forth. Yeah, those are services, okay? Technically they're services in the GDP accounts, okay? But they're not labor-intensive services. And so it's quite possible, yes, in many poor countries, the electricity is bad, okay? So it's not the case that every single service in a poor country is cheap, because a lot of services rely on high technology and high productivity sectors. But it is the case that you can take a driver from India or from sub-Saharan Africa and you move them to the United States and they become a taxi driver, and they're just as good, okay? They're equally as capable of driving around Lagos as driving around New York City, probably easier to drive around New York City, and yet their wages are much higher. Okay, and why is that? Well, it's because they have a higher opportunity cost in the United States.
Sure, no one doubts that people are paid more in the U.S. than, say, in India. But to give more of a like versus like example, I'll predict you get your haircut in India and not in Pakistan. Pakistan's a poorer country. So there's a lot of different factors. Labor cost is one of them, since labor share of GDP in the U.S., like it's often between 58 and 61%. Of course, wages will be a big part of explanations for everything. But these ex-ante predictions about where productivity will grow, I mostly don't buy them. And like, has cost disease helped people do better in the stock market because they see where the productivity gains are coming? I don't think so.
Let me put it this way.
You should have, in fact, you know, invested in a lot of labor-intensive stocks, say 15, 20 years ago, rather than manufacturing. Look at the big winners. Meta, formerly Facebook, right? It's becoming more about capital costs now.
Yes, that's very high productivity labor.
And now it's shifting to hardware for reasons that are not mainly the cost disease. So now NVIDIA, it's worth $4 trillion at the time we're recording. You need all these big expenditures for data centers, energy. So that's a shift back, you could say, in a more Baumol-esque direction. But for 15 years, we had a big shift in the other direction, where it's about having these smart people like Mark Zuckerberg who turn their labor into capital and build networks that bring in a lot of people. And that's the big productivity gain. So I just think we've seen it go both ways in the last 20 years.
So let me,
and I didn't predict NVIDIA, per se.
That's disappointing.
I predicted NVIDIA. But that's a good point. I haven't considered that before, actually. But oh no, I have seen this at Easy Money.
Suffering from a crisis.
I thought there's a new one or something, but no, I've seen this before.
You can sell this food.
Yes.
And
Why
who is this?
can I not hear it?
Random guy.
No, I thought there'd be
Did you ever
a huge
apply
chip
for a
demand.
permit?
Yeah.
Why can I not hear anything now? Uh-oh. What happened to my... headphones. Thoughts on whether or not AI is a bubble. Everyone keeps saying it, but I suspect anything being said by too many normies is just that it's already priced in.
And I didn't realize it would be so
Listen, bubble
bottlenecked in one company.
Sure, of course.
is a harsh term. Oh wait, I think it's connected to my old phone or laptop. Yeah. Yeah, connect to my fucking laptop. Oh shit, now it's super loud. Oh shit, I fucked up. Okay, whoa. I don't even need sound for this. Bubble's a harsh term, but like I think it probably is a case that like it to me it seems very unintuitive that AI, NVIDIA, and a lot of the big tech companies promoting AI are like it's truly going to be that valuable of a product. But I don't know, we'll see.
Of course. Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. I predict that the price of healthcare and education and home cleaning services and chauffeuring services will all rise in India over the next 20 years. So in fact, even if you look today, you'll find all of these middle-class people in India are starting to complain, right? It used to be I was able to hire servants, I was able to have somebody clean my house, and now it's just so much more expensive, okay?
You see that on the U.S. economy would have shrank without accounting for AI. I've seen people say that. I haven't looked that deep into it myself.
20 years.
But yeah,
I'll predict the price of chauffeuring services in the United States, and eventually India will decline with Waymo, Tesla, and others. So it goes both ways. I'm not saying there are no cases where it goes in your direction. There's both, and eventually India will have Waymo and Tesla.
Okay, why can't I hear anything again?
But sometimes poor countries are actually quicker to adopt new networks.
What?
Like with biometric.
Why? It said my PC was disconnected before it even told me it was connected. That's interesting. I love Bluetooth.
Scans and the like. So, no, I don't buy your examples. And I think healthcare in the U.S., I know less about India, but in quality-adjusted terms, that will become a lot cheaper. There's a lot of major advances, either recent or on the horizon.
So it's clearly true. So we can think about if it's the Baumol effect, okay, then what can we do to compensate or to alleviate the rising costs of services? Now, if you think that it's inefficiency or if you think it's the cost disease, which is a term I don't like, okay, then again you have to look at, well, we need more competition in healthcare, or we need more vouchers for university education or something like that, more of a free market in education. And I'm not against those things, okay, for different reasons, but I don't think any of those things would change the rising relative price over time. If you want to affect the rising relative price over time, then you have to do exactly what you just said, okay, which is you take a labor-intensive service, like being a chauffeur, and you turn it into a capital-intensive service, like having Waymo. So you're agreeing with me. You're agreeing with me. No. That's the Baumol effect.
You're just trying to win by tautology. It's ex ante labor intensive. I'm just saying it might get a lot of great new ideas. It might not. It can go either way. And the new ideas might involve a lot of capital, or say in the music sector, it might involve just one person with an acoustic guitar in a recording studio and lower capital costs than Led Zeppelin faced. It can go either way.
Waymo is using capital to replace labor. Robots are capital which replace labor.
There's even there a huge fixed and marginal distinction. So eventually the end marginal cost will be pretty low. Yes, it's high fixed costs to set up the network, get data.
Well, we know it's low because you can just in India you can rent a car and a driver for less than it costs to rent just a car here, right? Okay, so that tells you that the major cost of a taxi service, of a chauffeuring service, right, is the labor. Because it's so much cheaper in India, and that tells you that in principle Waymo can be much cheaper because the price of the labor is so much is such a large fraction of the price of the chauffeuring services. So that's why all of the effort in AI is to replace labor, because that's the major cost.
And they use a ton of labor to do it.
They don't use a ton of labor. They use a small number of very productive laborers who also, by the way, are worried that they're going to be replaced, okay? But yeah, I mean, you can, it can sometimes make sense to use a bunch of high productivity labor to create capital, to remove labor in a very, very, it doesn't take that many people to create Waymo, where the addressable market of drivers, is hundreds of millions of people. We all drive. So it doesn't take hundreds of millions of people. Hundreds of millions of people are driving, but it only takes less than 1 million, okay, very smart people to replace all of those 100 millions of drivers with technology.
AI is a very good example of how hard it is to predict where the productivity gains will come, because most people were shocked by AI working so well lately. And if we take the Alex Tabarrok of 1990 when we first met, you knew the Baumol effect then. If you just had to write down over the next 50 years where are the relative prices going to go up and down, quality adjusted, I'm not sure you would have done that well. I don't feel I would have done that well. Now, here's a case where I can't find any grounds for disagreeing with you. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it yet. But that's childcare.
Yes.
Now, I may just not be imaginative enough, but if you said, I, Alex Tabarrok, predict childcare, we're just stuck there because parents dogmatically want humans rather than robots to watch their kids, I'd say, okay, yeah, that's probably going to be explained pretty well by the Baumol effect. Again, I could be missing the point, the new innovation, but why haven't you mentioned childcare?
Well, actually, I have a post coming up, which will be next week, which will be on exactly this question.
It'll be up by the time anyone's listening.
Yes, exactly. So it's out now. You can go read the post now. It's a great post. And it actually is looking at exactly this question, childcare. And many people, including people, from our group, when they look at why is the price of childcare, going up, and everyone agrees it is going up. It's going up faster than inflation. That much is true. They point to regulation, and they say, look at all these ridiculous regulations where we're requiring, childcare.
He's going to say pet care, but pet care has been going up at the same rate.
And while I'm not
Truth nuke.
against
Say
that,
it.
okay,
I know what he's going to say.
Here is my test.
I
I
foresee.
recently had to go on a trip. And, when you go on a trip, you factor in the price of, the airfare and the hotel. I often forget to factor in the price of doggy daycare.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, I foresee.
You're paying too much.
I know. Well,
it's
maybe
been
I should bring my
foretold.
dog over to you. Maybe we should swap services or something. But it's extremely expensive. It's like $80 a day
Pre-watched.
for doggy daycare.
I'm pretty sure
that is
I've-
not. That is
I
not
know
the
exactly what he's
treats and
citing.
the fancy services and the walking and all of that. That's pretty standard doggy daycare in Northern Virginia. $80 a day, which is about the same as like a Motel 6.
I accept your general point here, but you do need to connect to an ethnically based network of people taking care of dogs, and the price will be lower.
Okay.
Side point totally, accepting your general point. Here's my hope for childcare. Again, I'm not predicting this. I
yeah.
agree with you on the general point, but I hope boarding schools come back as an organizational innovation, including with a lot of AI. That becomes a new form of childcare. Tongue-in-cheek, I'll say maybe we can make it a bit like factory farmings.
Oh my
And it
God.
might be cheaper than
Let's
current
go.
childcare, above some age, obviously not for 3-year-olds. So there could still be innovation.
What's goal do you have, non-fun?
Yes, it is
None.
possible. But
A lot of the Baumol effect people, they want to define the thing so narrowly. Whenever you give them progress, they'll either say, oh, that's a different good or service, or they want to say, oh, so it was capital intensive after all. But I want to, again,
Oh,
stress
damn.
the ex ante, ex post distinction that childcare and doggy care aside, I don't feel my intuitions about future productivity are so great. And I'm, more tuned into these things than most people. Do you think
Sure.
yours are that great?
Well, I do think Baumol made these predictions in 1954, I think it was, and they all turned out to be true. So
No, they didn't all turn out to be true.
Yes. You look at
Quality
the-
adjusted healthcare.
Again, the quality adjusted. This is just a way of faking the issue.
No,
because-
this is you want to slip out of it by saying it. The
Oh,
good or
no,
service changed.
Bitcoin
It's just a
also
productivity
none.
gain.
But in almost all sectors, quality comes.
Oh,
with
man,
falling
Skate
prices,
3
comes with
Skate
rising
3 's
prices. You
lagging.
can't just, it is
There's
true.
plenty of other
it is
reasons why
true
healthcare
that,
prices have gone up.
you know,
Technology is a huge one, and government's another. We had no Medicaid, Medicare, when Baumol first wrote on these topics.
Well, that's in favor
Well, I'm
of
surprised he hasn't
because,
mentioned pet care.
The increase in the price of medical care has happened
Investing
before
money in
there was
scalable
Medicaid and
doggy
Medicare, and happened
daycare
after
base.
as well. So here's an interesting example.
Healthcare expenditures really take off in the early
Stocks?
80s.
No, I
right?
don't have
pretend to know why.
money
There's
to
a literature on
invest.
this. I don't think it's because wage growth exploded.
Exclamation point TTS in chat, and we can change that. Make sure to give some super chats. Make sure to get some subs. Make sure to give me some bits. Make sure to get some kick gifts or whatever they call them. A couple of YouTube members, send a super sticker. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Rumble. Exclamation point web and nonfun.tg. Follow me and everything. Exclamation point rogue. Buy Rogue Energy, 10% off Rogue Energy powder. I think that's all I got.
In the early 80s. Before then, they grow up a bit, but it's not out of control. Then all of a sudden, you have these several decades where it's crazy.
No, I don't think that's
And
correct.
people don't in general say, oh, that's the Baumol effect.
No, I don't think that's correct. I think what happened is the price increase was happening for a very long period of time. You can go back to the 1900s, and the price increase of healthcare is going up and up and up. What happened in the 1980s was not a big increase, not a faster increase in the price.
Wasn't
It's just
Jeffrey
that
Sachs? I don't know enough
price
about
times
him.
quantity, the revenues became higher. It became a bigger part of people's checkbook. Okay, but that's just because the same price increase on a small base people don't notice as much.
Dude,
The same
oh my
price
God.
increase on a larger base becomes something which people talk about. But the actual price increases go back much before the 1980s.
I'll predict that for 2/3 of that history you decided quality adjusted prices for healthcare have been going down. Look, even the AMA admits before year whatever, I forget the number, doctors were more likely to kill you than save you. We have one colleague, our dear Robin Hansen, who thinks that still may be the case, which I don't agree with that. But man, until, I don't know, partly it was possible to do without Medicare because there weren't that many useful treatments before the 1960s. So to me, that looks highly deflationary. And if you ask yourself the question, you get $100,000 to spend on the healthcare of today or the healthcare of 1950, which one do you order? I know what Alex would do.
Yes, of course, of course.
So most of the time, it's going down the price.
But when you look at all of these multiple sectors, the repair sector, repairing of clothing, repairing of shoes, repairing of cars, repairing of people, right? It's not an accident that these are all the same thing. Healthcare is the repairing of people, right? So repair services in general have gone up because it's a very labor-intensive area of the economy. It's all the same thing. That's why I like the Baumol effect, because it explains a very wide set of phenomena. And let me give you...
A lot of things are easier to repair than they used to be, just to be clear. Or you just buy a new one. You know,
that's my point.
No, it's so cheap to buy a new one.
Exactly. The new one is manufactured. So that's the whole point, is the new one takes a lot less labor. The repair is much more labor intensive than the actual production of the good. So when you actually produce the good, it's on a, it's on a factory floor, and you've got robots, and they're all going through, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But repair services, it's unique.
I think you're not being subjectivist enough in terms of how you define the service. The service for me, if my CD player breaks, is getting a stream of music again. And that is much easier now and cheaper than it used to be. If you define the service as the repair, well, okay, you're ruling out a lot of technological progress. But you can think of just diversity of sources of music as a very close substitute for this narrow vision of repair. And again, from the consumer's point of view, productivity on quote-unquote repair has been phenomenal.
Well, but that is a consequence of the Baumol effect, not a denial of the Baumol effect. Because of the Baumol effect, repair becomes much more expensive over time, so people look for substitutes. So yes, we have substituted into producing new goods. And precisely, so it works both ways. The new goods are becoming cheaper to manufacture, okay? So we are less interested in repair. Repair is becoming more expensive, so we're more interested in the new goods. But that's a consequence of the Baumol effect. You can't just say, oh, look, we solved the repair problem by throwing things out. Now we don't have to worry about repairs. Yeah, that's because repair became so much more expensive. A shift in relative prices caused people to innovate. I'm not saying that innovation doesn't happen. One of the reasons that innovation happens is because the relative price of repair services is going up.
But that's a minor effect. It's not the case that, oh, I started listening
Still
to YouTube.
one.
It became too expensive to repair my CD player. It might be a modest, very modest effect, but mostly there's technological progress. YouTube, Spotify, and other services come along, Amazon one-day delivery, whatever else. And for the thing consumers care about, which is never what Baumol wanted to talk about. He always wanted to fixate on the physical properties of the goods, like the anti-Austrian he was. It's just like, oh, there's been a lot of progress. It takes the form of networks with very complex capital and labor interactions. It's very hard to even tease out what is truly capital-intensive, truly labor-intensive. You see this with the AI companies, all very mixed together. And that just is another way of looking at why the predictions are so hard. And you can only get the prediction simple by focusing very simply on these non-subjectivist, non-economic, physical notions of what
Too much. I want to hear Drew rant about immigrants do this way more yap than this, bro.
So I agree with you. Here's the point which I do agree, is that the initial Baumol and Bowen book on the arts was very pessimistic, okay? As was a lot of the discussion, as is the term cost disease, okay?
Right.
And I think that pessimism was wrong, and it's wrong because of the Baumol effect, actually. Baumol did not completely understand the Baumol effect when he wrote Baumol and Bowen. And the part that he didn't quite grasp too much is that the rise in the price of services is always caused by an increase in the productivity of the manufactured goods, so we're getting richer. So it is absolutely the case that the Baumol effect is not a reason to be pessimistic about the arts, and it's not a reason to be pessimistic about, healthcare or education. Even as
I think Zoran can lower housing prices by decreasing demand.
It's just a relative price change.
Not
and
significantly.
Without it being driven by costs, without it being driven by inefficiencies. So in that sense, we're getting richer. And yes, we're purchasing more art services, and that's great. And we can purchase more healthcare, and that's great. Still, in terms of the shift in the relative price, I think it's undeniable. And I would give you another, I think, which is a very telling example. We don't have great data on this, but it's interesting. Even in the Soviet Union, they were complaining that the price of art, the price of the ballet, had gone up. Okay. Now, in one sense, it doesn't make any sense at all, right? Because we're talking about the Soviet Union. All of the prices, are set by fiat, let's say, okay, in the perfect communist system. So how could they possibly complain about the rising price of the ballet? Well, but even in the Soviet Union, they had to recognize relative price trade-offs.
And so was going to celebrate if Matt Glacius died. Some of them definitely would.
Without having a physical price, without having a named price, they recognized that manufactured goods were becoming cheaper. So what you had to give up to produce the ballet, to go to the ballet, was becoming more expensive. You had to give up more good stuff to go to the ballet. And that's the ultimate Baumol effect, is what you have to give up in order to get that good of going to the ballet, producing the ballet. The cost of that is going up in terms of the opportunity cost. So even in the Soviet Union, the Baumol effect continued to hold, and that, I think, shows how deep and important the effect is.
As a final topic for this episode, what do you think of the Staffen-Linder effect, sometimes considered a close cousin of the Baumol effect? And Linder said in a series of articles somewhere in the QJE that basically because the number of hours in a day is fixed, that over time, as productivity would rise, leisure would become more goods intensive.
Right.
So more snowmobiles is one way to think of it.
The harried leisure class.
The harried leisure class. Do you buy it or not?
Yes, I do buy it. So the way I would put it is that the richer we become, the more valuable time becomes. So people want to squeeze more and more utils, more and more utility into a shorter period of time. So what happens is that, people get the dopamine hit on the phones and things like that. They're looking for quicker and quicker fixes rather than getting their pleasure from things which take a longer period of time. Yeah, I think that's true.
But there's two different effects on what you say. One is the quicker fixes point, which may or may not be true, and the other is the more snowmobiles point. Now, a snowmobile may or may not be a quick fix. It may take a long time to learn how to drive it. You go out with it for 3 hours, whatever, I don't know. I'm less convinced of the Linder effect. So clearly, in an economy with more goods, leisure will have more goods, but work will have more goods too, right? So people are more likely to listen to music when they work because you don't have to bring a stereo into your office. So whether that has gone up more than how goods are connected to leisure, I genuinely don't know. I think it's another case where ex-ante prediction is difficult. And certainly the number of hours of leisure time you have has gone up. So goods have gone up, but you have more hours to squeeze those goods into. So I would say I'm not sure. I'm not against the Linder effect. It's an interesting claim, but I'm not persuaded either.
You do have more hours as working hours goes down, and leisure hours goes up. Still, I think if you would go out and ask people in the street, do they feel more harried even in pursuing leisure? I think the answer would be yes, right? So now part of this, to be sure, is psychological and under a person's own control. But if you think about the leisure activities of the past, many more of them involved longer
Who's
hours.
smarter, Brunette,
more
Noah
time,
Smith, or
like talking with your
Iglesias?
friends,
Probably. I
sitting
feel like
on the
Noah
porch.
Smith.
Like people
but
don't get
I could be
pleasure from
wrong. I
sitting
don't
on the
know.
porch and watching people go down the street. Okay, instead they want to be right on their phone. They want to be watching a movie. They want to have instant access. And why do we? People are less likely even to go to the theater, the movie theater, because it just takes a longer period of time. You got to drive there. Okay, you got to find
And we're
parking.
going to see how
It's an
fun.
hour
Well,
to
thanks
get
for stopping
there,
by. I
okay?
appreciate
And then
it.
you watch the movie, and it's an hour to
Socialize
get
and
back. So
Sapien.
it's like
Hope to
2
see you
hours of
again
the movie and 2
whenever I
hours of your
stream.
time in getting there. The price is doubled. Why don't I just watch it at home?
Alex, what's your favorite leisure activity? At the margin, of course.
No,
talking with you,
not
Tyler.
understand
I was gonna
IQ.
say. So our favorite leisure activity is quote
It's too
unquote work.
it's
And
too
that's
high
exactly the
IQ
type of
to
ambiguity
grasp
where
it,
we see the
okay.
Linder effect.
Well, but at the same time, I suspect that many people are watching or listening to this podcast at 1.25 speed. So,
And they're calling it
Me,
work.
for real.
9:30 a.m. in the morning.
yes, well, it's going to improve their productivity, right?
Alex Tabarrok, thank you very much.
Always good talking with you.
I feel like Tyler probably did better there. I think it is. I didn't hear as good a response to the, like, obviously, $100,000 now versus $100,000 in 1950. I'm still choosing the $100,000 now to spend on healthcare than in 1950 because quality adjusted things have still gotten better. But regardless, okay. Well. I got places. I woke up a little early today. I've got to. By the way, these fucking Discord sounds are fucking me up, bro. I think they have Halloween sounds on. Ugh. By the way, you guys see the Chikawa plush I got right above Joe Biden? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that epic? I won that at arcade. Pretty goated. Only cost like $40. Goated. Anyway. Yeah. I might go for a walk and then go to bed, but I'm tired. I don't know. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna probably I am for sure actually. No, I am for sure actually gonna stream again tomorrow because I have the debate with North planned. So make sure to subscribe, follow, so you can check all that shit out. And we'll just be continuing to. I didn't do much of this on stream today, but on stream and off stream, I'll be continuing to prepare for the Jubilee debate that I have no clue if I'm in yet. I don't know. We'll be doing those memes and stuff. I don't know. I'll be better at streaming more consistently now, hopefully. But yeah, appreciate it. Love you guys. Love streaming. Love you guys watching the stream. Who can I send you over to on YouTube at the very least? Redirect, add, search. I guess food shops. Yeah. See you guys tomorrow, 9 p.m. And we'll be chatting with North. Appreciate it. Love you guys. See you guys.